Wanted to give you a few thoughts on, why I think the Canon EOS R5 is the best camera available for a hybrid shooter today. Um, and it's there are points that are to do with everyday real use, and I've been using this camera now for um, better part of let's just give you a shot of it there, but been using that camera for the better part of a week. It's upside down. There we go. And that's the R5 there. Now, this camera has been a very it's been mind blowing, really. And there's 5 points that I really want to make about this. As far as a hybrid shooter, I've been shooting digital and in the digital communications field for quite some time now. And for me, um, it's it's really about a camera that can shoot great stills, and then being able to shoot those stills and and having something that will last a long time, that will basically provide you with a, uh, a rock solid, reliable unit. And so let's start with those 5 points and we'll talk about it a bit more in detail. It's a monster stills camera. This camera right here is a monster stills camera, and there's no arguing that. I mean, it does what it does better than a lot of cameras I've used, and I have used between work and in my business, personal life. I've used Canons pretty much all my life, but I've used Nikons as well. I've used Lumix cameras, and I've used Sony's. I've also used Canon professional cinema cameras, the C100 and C200. And these cameras, they all do something um, do something well. But what the R5 does is it sort of is a best of all worlds thing. And like a lot of hybrid shooters sort of discovered the EOS R, we've had it since the get-go. It's what I'm shooting this on. But a lot of people just sort of discovered the R in the last year or so. And a lot of vloggers, a lot of online people. Well, the R5 is many times the camera the R is, but they play nicely together. And these are going to be my two main cameras. But overall, getting back to these 5 points, number one is the stills, and it's perhaps the best stills camera Canon's ever made. There are, the 1DS series, there are some great cameras there as well, but for what you get with this, it's really incredible. The dual pixel autofocus is unbelievable. It's still the king, and I'm not sure if it's the AI learning that they're doing, or just a really good upgrade to the dual pixel, but it is an incredible. It's really an incredible feature. The eye detect autofocus. Now, I've been shooting animals. I've been shooting like dogs and birds and a children's party, a children's get together the other just over the weekend. My 9-year-old playing with her friends, and shot a photo. I was at a school playground, and one of the boys was running towards me about 30, 40 feet away, probably, 10, 15 meters, 20 meters maybe. And he was running full tilt. It was dusk. It was dark out. And this camera locked onto his eye through a chain link fence. So I was shooting through a chain link fence. I was up close. I mean, the links were about like that, because I had my camera, my RF35 lens on it, fairly close, but it caught that, tracked him, and shot those photos through that relatively dark. So very, very impressed with eye detect autofocus. And I can't wait to see what else it does with that eye detect. The 4K 120, the 8K, and the 1080p. I want to mention all of those as a video shooter, because as a hybrid shooter, you're going to use a lot of those modes, but your finished product that goes online is most of the time, 90% of the time, going to be 1080. as far as an upload goes. And it's going to be a product that it's going to be a product that is going to be viewed by most people on a phone, a smartphone, and probably at 480p or some much lower resolution. So you can give lots of thought into the capabilities of this camera here. I'm going to point at my R, but I'm actually pointing at the R5. I mean, this camera can do a lot. 8K, 4K 120, 4K 60, 4K 24, 4K 30, you name it. But for the next 4 or 5 years, for sure, you're not going to be using it. You're not going to be using all those capabilities. You're probably going to be focusing, and we'll talk more about that later, but you're going to be focusing on in the 1080 realm. And Canon has the best 1080, bar none. And we'll get into that later as well. Actually, right now, a little bit on that, a lot of my Sony shooter friends say, well, yeah, we shoot in 4K and then we export in 1080. The reason behind that is that Sony cameras do not shoot really good high bitrate 1080p. Yes, there's a thing that you can crop 4K if you want, and you could do that with this EOS R. You can do that with the R5 as well. And you can crop 8K in the R5, which Sony doesn't have at all. Not to bash Sony. Great cameras, great products. I have a lot of Sony products here at home. Trust me. However, the high bitrate 1080p that comes out of a Canon EOS R or R5 or R6 is incredible. And if you're posting for 1080p, you're not spending a lot of time or resources on editing because you don't want to. You want to get something online fairly quickly. And today, especially as a hybrid digital creator, digital producer, working with a small business, doing a regular series of videos weekly or monthly, you don't want to spend time and they don't want to spend the money. So you need to get something out there that looks good, looks sharp, and works on the media you're building it for. And if you can frame your shots great and you can get the lighting well, you can shoot in 1080 natively. You can export in 4K, which is what a lot of people will do to sharpen it up a bit into YouTube. But you will get more manageable files and super great detail of the 1080 on the Canon. So that's just the fourth point there: the 4K, the 4K 120, the 8K, and the 1080. And then perhaps the biggest thing to me, and I've been shooting. Whoops, my GoPro just shut down. I was doing a desktop view with that, but anyway, as a Canon professional, for me, reliability is a huge deal. Canon supports the photographer, the professional photographer, better than any manufacturer out there by far. You can get spares anywhere in the world. You could be in a village in Nepal shooting photos or video, and you suddenly need an extra battery, or you need a part, or you need a lens. You are far more likely to be able to find that Canon product in the closest city or even service centers versus any other brand. And that means a lot. You can have the greatest camera in the world, but if you can't get it fixed when you need it, you can't get a replacement sent to you instantly when you need that service, and CPS offers that for Canon pros, then it sort of kills the point of actually having the gear. Gear should be reliable. Canon cameras are the most consistently reliable cameras out there. The R5, this unit here, is weather sealed. It is weather sealed like my other 5 series cameras. And that is a big deal. The R is also somewhat weather sealed. When you're shooting photos on Vancouver's downtown east side in the driving rain in the middle of winter, which is about 8 months of rain here, you need that. You need a Canon camera, or like a camera that has a weather sealed lens and weather sealed body, but can still do those other things. And that's a trade-off there. People are talking about some of the other issues and stuff. And yes, well, if you seal up a device that shoots 8K, you're going to expect that it probably is going to get a little warm. And certainly have that, but I haven't experienced that. My history, and those are the 5 points there, but and we'll repeat them again at the end, but my history with the 5 series EOS cameras goes back many years. My very first 5 series camera is the 5D Mark II. And just hold it up here so you can see it. And this guy here is the camera that I've used for many years. And don't have a turntable here, but I have used this camera for a lot of things. Right now, the 70-200 lens on it, because I still shoot events with this as my second camera until I got the R5. This was my long lens camera. So I'd put the 70-200 on here on the R5, the 5D Mark II, not 3 or 4, but Mark II. And in those days when I purchased this was close to 10 years ago, probably around 2010, I think it was when it came out. This camera I bought because I wanted a fantastic stills camera. I wanted the best, or one of the best stills cameras I could get that was reasonably affordable, but a good size as well, good size weight ratio. And Canon still made their big professional bodies as well with the big grip and everything, the 1D series. I wanted something that was affordable. I mean, it is a professional camera, so it's not cheap by any stretch, but as far as professional cameras go, the price, I mean, if you think about it, 10 years of use, it's at about $3,500 Canadian when I bought it, $350 a year, and made money for me probably every one of those years. The first year or so I bought it and I was just having fun with it. But the point is, it's a very good value for that. And then I think it was 2012 or so, that was the year, SNL, Saturday Night Live, shot this great opening sequence. And it was shot on the 5D Mark II with the 7Ds as well. So a blend of those cameras. And I was in awe because up till that point, I thought video was shot with professional video cameras or camcorders, and that's just what you did. The 5D Mark II was earth-shattering. It was something that actually created this incredible new field, videography. And a lot of people that shot photos started shooting video on the 5D Mark II, and I did as well. And I shot stuff that appeared in ads, and I shot stuff initially strictly with the 5D Mark II. Then I added a 70D, and that dual pixel autofocus was introduced then. Great tools for me. I went on to add a Lumix, which I got rid of because I hated the autofocus, and I just really need it with the work you do. And when you're sort of a independent contractor, or you do a lot of work in your business on your own and you're shooting, you want the autofocus. You're not having somebody pull focus. You don't have all the other stuff necessarily, not all the time, but sometimes. So it's necessary. But anyway, the 5D Mark II has been rock solid. I expect to get that and more out of the R5. And I think the R5 is the next 5D Mark II for Canon. And here's why I say that. I've always been a hybrid shooter. And as a web developer, content creator, it's always been photo first. It's always been stills first. You need amazing stills. You need amazing stills for thumbnails. You need for YouTube or for your videos in general to promote your stuff. And most small businesses, when you work with them, they request, or any other organization, not just a small business, they're looking for artwork and graphics and creative. They're looking for stuff for their social media posts. They want to be able to tell stories. That budget usually doesn't include videos or professional videos. And at times it does, but I need tools that can do both of those things for me, but primarily photo first, stills first. Stills are still the hook. And that's something that as a content creator, I think, or a marketer, you need to know. The hook is still the still. Video is fantastic, and I've been in, even right now, working where the stills, some of the stills stories, the story type posts we do with great stills, great portraits of people actually perform better than videos. And and now we're going to a world where streaming is more important, the live streaming. So if live streaming is that important, then we also have this situation where we are getting into a different kind of filming and a different type of web, I guess, engagement. But stills will still lead the way. And we use stills for, again, graphics and ads and photos for everything, including social media profile photos and, splash pages and you name it, websites. So I needed the camera that was the best for stills. And so I think the R5 is the best stills camera I can get. That works with all my lenses back there and also is interchangeable with my other cameras. And the color science is amazing. I can shoot off JPEGs to a business from a live event, and they have it. I just get the Canon app. I have the Canon app on my phone, and I shoot them a few JPEGs so they can Instagram them while an event's going on. And the camera takes these fantastic, beautiful, straight out of camera JPEGs that can be used for social media instantly, and it's way better than a phone image or images from a lot of other cameras. So in my work, I haven't had to probably shoot more than a few minutes at a time as far as clips go. The longest I've ever done, I did some TEDx events where I shot the entire event and captured on my 5D Mark II and my 70D just great. Never had a problem with those. And with the R5, I would, if I wanted to or had to, shoot probably in the 4K, the lower res 4K or 1080 for one of those events if I had to, and I don't typically do them. If I do a longer interview, though, I can shoot for a 4K 24p easily on the R5, and I can shoot 4K 24 easily on my EOS R. So I've got a couple of cameras that can do that. I can also shoot 4K and with manual focus on the M50 I have on the shelf there. So we have a lot of options. I'm not looking to shoot 24-minute 4K video clips or 30-minute or 1-hour video clips in 8K on this camera. Plan out your shots, plan out your script, have your shot list, get out there, get your shots, boom, 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 be efficient. You'll never have a problem with overheating. I haven't yet using this camera. And so, I mean, that is why I think this camera is a game changer. It's a game changer for the world's biggest camera manufacturer in a sense that they are doing something that nobody else can. I mean, people can point at the 8K all the time as much as they want. They can point at the 4K 120 and the slight overheating after half an hour or whatever it is and the build up on that. But with the type of work that I do and most online content creators do, I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter. So people that don't own this camera, haven't used it, or are not hybrid shooters or online content creators, it's really much ado about nothing as far as that, the overheating issue that happens with a couple of the different types of frame rates and modes. But in the end, I mean, my channel has always been about value, whether it's value I bring to a client or my wanting to help people find the best value that's out there for products. Spending $1,000 or $2,000 less on a camera, or almost the same on a camera that you will probably want to upgrade every 2 years, doesn't make sense to me. Having a camera that'll last 8 to 10 years, 7 to 10 years, in this price range is brilliant. It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. And really, that's where I'm coming from, and that's what I propose. When I talk about value, that's a big deal. This 10-year-old 5D Mark II is a brilliant camera. I love it, and I still love it. My 9-year-old daughter is going to be using it as a camera to learn on. a little bit big in her hands, but she'll do just fine. The 5 series are rugged, they're reliable, they're weather sealed. That's value. Um, it's 10 years at $300 some a year that made me money every one of those years. That's value. If this camera, if the R5 gives me even 5 to 7 years, I mean, it's going to be relatively cheap. For what it's for the cost per year. You can't even rent a camera for a weekend for that price. So that's value. And I don't think we're going to get a lot of requests for 8K video. We're rarely getting requests for 4K video right now. So the idea that 8K video is suddenly going to be something, yes, I see people saying that they're going to crop out of it and stuff, but do you always have to crop? Do you ruin shots that much that you have to crop from 8K down? Yes, you can get different angles. I understand that. Well, when I shoot 5 minutes of 8K on this, I'm going to get a whole bunch of different angles. And most of my takes don't last that long because most of my talent will not remember a line for 2 minutes, let alone 5 minutes. Most of the talent I work with. And as far as a long interview goes, I'm going to shoot it in 4K 24. You don't shoot an interview in 60 frames per second or 120, let alone 120. So at 24 frames per second, the R5 will never overheat on you. So at 4K 24, it's not going to overheat. As far as an 8K interview shot, I think you got to rethink what you're trying to accomplish if you're going to do a 30-minute long interview in 8K. Makes no sense at all. But 4K, great. 4K 120 shooting B-roll. I get tired lugging around a camera. That's why I bought the M50. I get tired of lugging around a mirrorless camera for 10 or 15 minutes, holding perfectly still or with a gimbal trying to get shots. Now that's the other thing, the IBIS on this, the dual IBIS. This is the best IBIS in any mirrorless system, period. In-lens stabilization in Canon lenses and any of the IBIS. And that's, I guess, 0.6 on my 5 points as far as why I think this camera is the best for me and for what I do. But walking around with this camera with a big lens on it, 5 minutes, take a break. Are you doing anything else with that? Do you need to shoot 30 minutes straight? And yes, I understand it's cumulative, but for goodness sakes, you're planning your shots out. You're going to shoot a few in a row. You might shoot for about a half an hour, take a break, think about it, find another location and go shoot for another half an hour. There is a lot of ways. And a buddy of mine who works with me purchased this unit the same day I did. We were at the top of the list here at our local camera shop. Hey, Broadway Camera in Vancouver. Great to give you a shout out here on the channel. But we use these. He's gone out and shot in the wilderness and, hadn't had any issues with overheating. And I can't share the clip here, but what he shot was fantastic. And I would say that if you shoot if you're able to shoot like that for a client, you've got everything you need. Whether you're a hybrid shooter or even if you're strictly video, which he does a lot more video than photos, but maybe it's balanced. I'm not sure exactly the details. I'll let him explain that when we interview him a little while later in this channel. But for me, this just makes a lot of sense. And then as a web specialist, I've been an online content creator since 1999. That's when I finished my postgraduate in object-oriented software technology with a focus on web services. And really, at that time, web design was my passion. And I used photos a lot, but I noticed something. The web, it's about what tools your end users have, and it always has been. If all of my clients are watching, or all my clients' audiences are watching videos on a smartphone, I'm doing my clients a disservice by selling them on 4K video or 8K, heck, 8K video. But 4K, I am doing them a disservice. It's wrong. I am charging them more for that gear. I'm charging them more for those shots. And that's what everybody does. But I encourage my clients to grab a smartphone and Instagram themselves and do Instagram stories, go live on Facebook on your phone. I encourage them to do that, to have ongoing continuous content. So if I'm producing for them, I'm going to create stuff in 1080 and I'm going to post it in 1080 to YouTube or Facebook or wherever it goes. And then they can do what they want with it. And they're getting stuff that's well done, looks good at a reasonable price, easier to work with. But something's changed in the world in the last couple of years as well. And the coronavirus epidemic has actually fomented a lot of this. And so that is another big issue here that we have to contend with. People's use of networks, of upgrading devices constantly, upgrading my TV. Oh, I need a 4K TV now that does, whatever, 120 hertz or what have you. I need, the latest and greatest everything. That's going to stop. We're in a global recession right now, where we are at the edge of quite an abyss, actually, worse than the Great Depression. People aren't working. Producing or overproducing content for those end users is a slap in the face. When somebody can't afford the high speed internet that's required to stream your 4K video or your 6K or 6.5K, 5.5K, 8K, whatever you want to do, if somebody can't afford that, it's like a slap in the face. You're telling that end user you're not good enough. And maybe in the past 10 years, where the economy and the markets were going like that, that was great because people had upgrade-itis, whether it's for televisions or for anything else, and they were buying mobile phones every year, switching them up. People aren't doing that now. Take a look around. They ain't doing it. So it's really important that we think about that. YouTube, they don't default to 4K when you watch a video. They don't even go to 1080. It's 480p. People watching on their little cell phone screens, again, it's lower resolution. So if you look at that and you look at the end product, what are you doing trying to sell people on 4K video? It's a great catchphrase. Yes, you can charge them more, but is it giving them the best value? And is it giving you the best value? Think about the hard drives you need just to store it and edit it. Think about the computer, the processor, the processing power you're going to require is ridiculous. And then you have to archive this stuff. You're not going to just throw it out after you give it to the client. I mean, most people don't. So there's going to be far less 4K consumption over the next few years, let alone 8K consumption. And that's something to think about. The days of constant upgrades to networks and technologies, that's slowing down. And we may not see that for a while. So in the end, I mean, as a online content producer, as a hybrid shooter, I'm looking for overall value. I'm looking for a reliable camera with ubiquitous lens availability. I mean, you can buy a Canon EF lens, which fits on this camera with the adapter over there. I can fit all my EF and EFS lenses on this camera. That's a big deal. Being able to utilize all that old gear and buy the gear on Craigslist super cheap, that's a big deal. That's more important to me than some features. And this camera's got them all, but it's quite a camera here, the R5. But the overall value, global support that Canon gives you, I could be in that proverbial village in Nepal, and I can get spares. Canon, I can get online or get on the phone with them, and they will send me parts. They'll take my other part back and ship me a replacement, and something that'll last for 10 years, that's just value overall. And that is something that should mean something to you if you're about saving money. So, I mean, I know in the end, it's not about the camera. It's about what's behind here and what you're looking at, what you create in the end. But to have a tool that you can use, for the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years, that means a lot. And this camera right here will do that for me. And for me, that is important. And I think that we're coming to the end of the video here real quick, but basically, I'm not pushing any gear on anybody. I said for a long time, the M50 is the best tool for you to do content creation on a budget, and I still will say that. For my work and for my business, the R5 is great. Works with the C100s and C200s that I will see at work. Works with cameras my partners have and friends have that I shoot with. And it will give me that 10 years. So in a nutshell, that's it. It's overall value. And those 5 points that I mentioned right at the start, and those 5 points of being a monster stills camera, which is what I need, having that great dual pixel autofocus, having that eye autofocus that nails everything, having all the different frame rates. Yes, there's limits, but there's always limits. You can buy a Lamborghini. It's not going to go 1,000 miles an hour. It's going to hit you around 300, whatever it is, 280 kilometers an hour. There are limits to everything. And then finally, having that professional support in a reliable product that'll last. So that's overall value and overall reliability. And I think this nails all of that. This is the camera that does that in spades. And that's why it's the best camera for me. Your mileage may vary. You may not need this. The R6 might be better. The Sony, whatever it is, S3, R3, I'm not sure what the Sony one's called, but the latest one, that might be more your style. Maybe you do, trade in your camera every 2-3 years. So maybe then you'll get the next great Sony camera. They introduce a lot. And, so that might be your thing. Maybe you shoot Fujis. I have an X100F sitting right up here on the shelf. And I love this camera. Great to look at. I do use it. It's fun to use. It's fun to shoot with. But it's, again, it's just the tool that you need to do the job that you are trying to do. And I have an old Canon FX stills camera up there as well that my dad shot with back in the 60s. And I still shoot black and white film with it. So in the end, find the value, go after the value. I've just said why the R5 is my favorite camera, why I think it's the best hybrid camera available, bar none. Put your comments down below. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and please do include any questions. Of course, we'll try to get back to as many as possible, but in the end, probably we'll get to all of them. But go out there and shoot. Try a camera. Take the camera that you love, whether it's your phone camera or a point and shoot or a DSLR or a mirrorless. Get out there and shoot, create art, make beautiful things, and look for that value in life. Until next time, I'll catch you on the B side.